So notice in chapter 22, this whole story, Sarah's name isn't even brought up, much less is she given any kind of line in this whole endeavor. And so the beginning of chapter 23 says, Sarah lived 127 years. This was the length of Sarah's life. And Sarah died at Kiriath Arba, that is Hebron, in the land of Canaan. And Abraham went in to mourn for Sarah and to weep for her. Abraham had to travel to find her when she died and to ask the locals who are foreigners to him. He's an outsider coming into town where Sarah was living when she died, so he could purchase a burial spot for her. I had not ever stopped to pay attention to that, and I read it as I was researching for my book, right? I read it in an article that was almost kind of like, I almost didn't read it because it wasn't in a serious journal, and it was written by, I'm not sure if he was a rabbi or if he was a Jewish chaplain. And he wrote this piece that just said, hey, it looks to me like Sarah left him after he tried to kill their child. Like, way to go, Sarah. Maybe we should be holding her up as someone to emulate. There's one time in all of Christian scripture, so the Hebrew Bible and the Newer Testament, one time where Sarah is held up as someone to emulate. And that's in the letter of 1 Peter. And when she's held up as someone to emulate, it is because she had endured terrifying things. And right, when she's pimped out twice, right? And you are daughters of Sarah if you do what is good and are not frightened by terrifying things. That's my translation of the Greek. It's usually toned down quite a bit in the English translations. That's the only time that Sarah's held up as someone to emulate. What if we held her up as someone to emulate in this story? That when Abraham listened to the voice of the Lord and responded to the most horrific thing I can even imagine a spouse doing to their spouse, which is to kill a child without talking, like, just God told me to go do this and to just go do that, like, it's awful. Anyway. And then in her response to that is to just leave his ass behind. I just love that. What do you think? I don't know. What do you all think? How many lines does Sarah get in the entire first 22 chapters of Genesis? When does she speak up? Go back and look at those in chapters 16 and 21. What is she allowed to have lines to say? Not very much. How is she being depicted? Is she desperate, trying to survive? Is she trying to help? God has allegedly given Abraham this promise that his descendants will outnumber the stars. So how are we going to make that happen? So she tries to make it happen, and then it backfires on her, and she's angry, and then she wants to get rid of him. And what's going on there? For Sarah, but she's not even acknowledged in the entire chapter where Abraham almost kills their child. Sacrifice is a really bad way to refer to it because it tones it down and it keeps you distant from it. He almost slaughters their child because he heard a voice from God telling him to do that. I just have no space or time for that.